We're fortunate enough to have Thomas here tonight to talk about Oraclize. I've said enough words, so I'll just hand over to Thomas to talk about Oraclize. Thank you.
Thank you. So yeah, I'll start by talking about Vue. Please don't ask me for the reason for that name. And then I will make a short introduction about Oraclize, which is the project on which Vue is based on. And then we'll go back again to Vue to see what it is in practice. So let's start to see something about OpenBazaar. So most of you already know what OpenBazaar is. Just to recap, OpenBazaar is essentially a decentralized marketplace, which is based on the Bitcoin blockchain. So this means that you can get rid of most of the intermediaries that you have today, of the trusted third parties. So think about replacing Amazon, eBay, Visa with a completely decentralized marketplace, which lives on a decentralized network built on the top of the Bitcoin one. So there are still some centralized parties in this design, and those are mainly moderators that we'll see later, and carriers, because at the end of the day you still have to ship something, and the parcel needs to be delivered at the doorstep of the buyers. So let's see how the OpenBazaar moderation works and how it is, what it is. So essentially, when you as a buyer want to buy something from a merchant on this decentralized network, you are mostly not trusting the merchant because you don't know if his identity is real and all this stuff. So what you do is choosing a trusted party, which is called moderator, which is intermediating and essentially handling any kind of dispute that can happen, right? So let's say, for example, that the merchant is claiming that your parcel was shipped and you don't receive anything. So in this case, you just go to the moderator and you ask the moderator to resolve the dispute somehow, right? So the moderator is a party which is trusted by both the buyer and the merchant, the seller. And the way it works in OpenBazaar is that you choose when setting up the store, you as a merchant, when you set up the store, you choose a set of moderators that you trust, and then the buyer can choose from this set the moderators that they trust. So at the end, for each transaction, you have one moderator, which is just doing something when you have some disputes. So if there is no dispute, then there is no need of a moderator. So the moderator doesn't need to do anything in this case. But when you have a dispute, you just look for the moderator to solve it because the moderator is the trusted party. So we see that moderators is still a centralized party. Of course, you can have tons of moderators, but at the end of the day, if you think about it, it's reasonable to think that we will have a relatively small set of trusted moderators. Because moderators need to build their reputation, and building the reputation is something which takes some time. So I don't think that we'll see something like 1,000 moderators. So this is hard to scale. So when thinking about moderators, what do we expect a moderator to do is essentially to publish some policies, okay, and to essentially to rely on some facts, to something which is objective. So let's say that I'm a merchant and I say that I claim that the parcel was shipped, and the other party claims that he didn't receive anything. So in this case, a fact can be the print of my receipt from the carrier, which is showing that I did really send the given parcel at the right address, not to a different one, right? So this is a fact. And if you think about it, moderators, the role of moderators is mostly about choosing something based on a small set of facts. So talking about facts, the moderator is analyzing the facts and triggering some transaction event. So when I say transaction event, I mean the signing of a transaction. And signing of transaction can be of different types, because if I have a partially signed transaction, for example, and I just want to approve a transaction which was pre-signed by some parties, then I'm just putting my signature and I'm broadcasting the transaction, okay? But if, as a moderator, I choose that something completely different needs to happen, so let's say that I want to move the funds back to the merchant for 30% and 70% to the buyer, then it might be that I'm not putting the last signature of the transaction, but just the first one, and proposing my transaction to one of the other two parties. So I didn't mention it first, but Open Bazaar moderation is based on multi-sig wallets with 2 of 3. Multi-sig. 2 of 3 means that when the buyer needs to pay for something, the funds are not sent straight to the merchant, but are sent to a multi-sig wallet. So this multi-sig wallet is a special Bitcoin address, which is built by a set of keys, in this case 3 keys. Each party is in possession of one of those keys, so the buyer has one key, the merchant has another key, and the moderator has the last one. 2 of 3 means that 2 signatures are enough to move funds from this address. This is interesting because it means that the moderation in reality doesn't need to do anything in most cases, because if both the buyer and the merchant do agree on where the funds have to be moved, then yeah, the moderator doesn't need to put any signature, because you can already have the 2 of 3 signatures by the other, coming from the other 2 parties. But it also means that if the moderator does choose something, it's enough then one of the other 2 parties put its signature, so the transaction is approved. So in this case, the moderator is really the one choosing, because the moderator, and this is the reason why the moderator needs to be a trusted party for both the buyer and the seller. So we set facts. So essentially, this is a very simple case. So we just want to move funds from A to B. Let's say that A is the multi-sig wallet, and B is the wallet of the merchant. So we want to move all the funds that the buyer has paid to the multi-sig address to the merchant just once the parcel is delivered, right? So can we enforce this logic without putting some trust in an external party? So in most cases, as I just said, if the parcel is delivered and both parts did confirm that, so they said yes, the parcel was shipped, and yes, I did receive the parcel, then the issue is not there. But you still need, when you are the merchant, to wait for the receiving party to mark the parcel as received. So this can take some time. And in some cases, you don't really want to wait for the untrusted buyer to mark the parcel as received, right? And this is where moderators come in. But so since moderation is so important, because essentially this is the party choosing how fast the merchant will get the money in his pocket, and what happens to the funds as soon when some dispute is open. Can we lower the trust that we are putting in this party? So essentially, this is something that in most cases a smart contract can do. And since Open Bazaar is based on the Bitcoin blockchain, we are focusing now, we try to focus on the Bitcoin approach to execute smart contracts. So can we execute a smart contract on the Bitcoin network? So most of you probably is thinking about Ethereum, because Ethereum was designed for executing smart contracts. But Open Bazaar is not based on Ethereum, and Ethers probably at this point are not a good store of value. It's for sure not as much as Bitcoin. So instead of looking to external blockchain, can we execute a smart contract on the same technology on which we are already executing the decentralized marketplace? There are different ways to execute those smart contracts. And one approach is the one of extending the operations of Bitcoin opcodes with sidechains, for example, but we don't have them yet today. So can we do this already? We can with an Oracle network. So an Oracle network is essentially a set of parties, which we call oracles, which can verify facts. So this picture is coming from the paper of Oraclize. So Oraclize was a project started 2 years ago, and they were trying to define a way, a common standard for oracles to talk between each other, to execute some smart contracts, very simple smart contracts. So as you see here, this is based on multi-sig wallets that we were talking about. So if you split the permission, the right to move funds between different parties, let's say that instead of the 3 keys that we had before, we have 10 keys. So a wallet which is built on with 10 different keys. Then you can have each oracle to own one of those keys and say that you trust the majority. So you just say, look, when 6 of you put a signature on a given transaction, to me it means that an event is really verified and you can trigger whatever you want. So here you're not saying anything about what each oracle needs to do to verify the condition. You're just completely trusting the oracle to put the signature as soon as the event is verified. So each oracle puts the signature on a partially signed transaction. And once you have enough signatures, for example, at least 6 of 10, on the same transaction, then you say that this is enough for you and this smart contract can actually be executed. So your transaction is valid. However, this Oracle network is not there today. And the reason for this is that probably the Oraclize project started too early. So I got in touch with those guys and they told me that the community had no interest at the time to act as oracles. Even because their design didn't have a clear proposition on what the revenue model for those oracles would be. So it's not easy to build an Oracle network for different reasons. And in fact, we don't have any today. Talking about Open Bazaar, we had these 2 of 3 multi-sig wallet, and it will be very difficult to have one of those keys, the one which is dedicated for moderation, in fact, today, to be split between different parties of the Oracle's network, which doesn't exist. So when we talk about facts and Open Bazaar moderation, the main data sources that you can think about are the one listed here. So mostly carriers, right? So we're talking about DHL, UPS, Open Bazaar 1, the Bitcoin blockchain in some cases, in a very limited set of cases, or a prediction market. So for example, you can open an event on Gnosis or Augur and ask the crowd whether your parcel with a given tracking number was already received or not, right? So there can be different data sources, but in fact, the technology that we use today to build this Vue project is Oraclize. Oraclize is a good compromise working as a replacement for the Oracle's network, which is not there yet. So essentially, the reason why an Oracle network is made by different parties is that you really don't want to trust a single party, because a single party is not censorship resistant, doesn't give any guarantee as for the uptime, for example, and can easily tamper any data. So you cannot trust the fact that it will really put the signature on the transaction just when the fact is verified. So the way we solve this with Oraclize is, which is a central party. So Oraclize is a centralized party. It's distributed, but it's managed by a single company, right? So in theory, you would say that you cannot trust Oraclize neither because they could easily tamper data, right? So the way we solved this was with honesty proofs. So essentially, Oraclize provides some cryptographic evidence showing that the data you asked to fetch or to base your smart contract on wasn't tampered by Oraclize. So the way we do that is with TLS Notary at this point. We have other proofs coming soon, but this TLS Notary is an interesting project. You can see the white paper at tlsnotary.org. And TLS Notary provides a cryptographic proof proving that a given server really gave a certain response at a specific time. Okay, so we can prove, for example, that if you ask to get some data from UPS to see if a given parcel was delivered or not, we can prove with this honesty proof that Oraclize is really behaving honestly and not altering the result coming from that website. So the way you can interact with this Oraclize-based smart contract on Bitcoin is via some HTTP APIs or via web interface. So this is the web interface. And as you see here, you can choose the data source and the formula. So in this case, we choose as data source Wolfram Alpha and as formula the temperature in Venice. But obviously, you could ask something like the data source is UPS and the formula is the status of my shipment with this tracking number. Okay. Then you set a condition, something like check if it's delivered or still in transit, for example. As you see here, the conditions are very simple. So it means that you cannot get the same flexibility you can get from an Ethereum smart contract now. And the reason for this is that this needs to be a very simple standard because we wanted to keep this as generic as possible so that other oracles could potentially jump in and start together with us to create this oracle network which doesn't exist yet. But in most cases, verifying simple conditions is enough. So in this moderation use case, it's more than enough. And there is no screenshot here for some reason. Yeah, there was a picture here showing a network monitor. So as I said before, these honesty proofs are a good way to verify that the oracle is behaving honestly. Those honesty proofs are really important because they are not stored on our infrastructure. So they are stored on a distributed network on IPFS. Some of you probably know this IPFS project. It's a decentralized file system, essentially. So you can store in an effective way data on IPFS. And what we are storing on this IPFS is exactly those honesty proofs. Then we store on the Bitcoin blockchain the multi-hash of the IPFS proofs. So we cannot alter the hash of those proofs at any time because those are stored permanently on a Bitcoin blockchain. And this means in practice that at any time you can fetch the proofs by yourself, even if our service disappears or things like that. You can just look at the past Bitcoin transactions that we made, and you can fetch the honesty proofs and re-verify the honesty proofs by yourself and see if we were behaving honestly even in the past. So Oraclize as a way to execute smart contract is a good compromise today because you can verify that it's behaving honestly, not tampering data and this kind of stuff. And on the other side, it's not censorship resistant. So this means that in theory, oraclize could stop the execution of a smart contract. But what it cannot really do is triggering some wrong transaction. Because as soon as we tamper data, the honesty proofs will be broken, and the same will happen to our reputation. So this is something totally different from our other services that are providing those honesty proofs in different ways. And this is why we call ourselves provably honest and not provably fair, or things like that. Because the concept is, I mean, there is a huge difference, which is that providing to one of your, as a service, when you provide to a client an evidence of honesty, this party could notice or not. And in the case this party does notice that you did break something, you did cheat, then the next question will be, will this party tell to anybody? If you keep all the honesty proofs on chain and you store them permanently, it means that you have no need for the party which is receiving the broken answer, let's say. You have no need for this party to do anything, because you can verify at any time all the past answer of the service. So, going back to FIO, essentially FIO is a smart contract which is based on oraclize, so it does leverage this single oracle structure. And it doesn't really rely on open bazaar. So you can execute the logic of FIO even without open bazaar. But obviously open bazaar is a perfect fit because of his moderator structure. So we can easily, with just one signature, replace a human moderator on open bazaar with an automated moderator. The automated moderator is something very different from the human moderator. So this really depends on the merchant. If the merchant is willing to trust, not really to trust oraclize, in fact, but just to provide the oraclize, the FIO service. Because essentially, FIO does really a limited set, can check a limited set of conditions, not all the conditions that a human moderator can check. So let's say that I buy a smartphone, and in fact, I do receive something like a brick. Okay, so this is not something that you can easily verify with a smart contract. And not even a human moderator has an easy way to verify this, because the facts are not easy to verify. So what you could do maybe, if you as a buyer think that it's likely the scam will happen, you could start to record a video or something as soon as the carrier is at your doorstep, okay? And you can record everything from the tracking number, the unboxing, and show that there was a brick inside. I think this is pretty unlikely. I think this will happen pretty often. So this is still an unsolved issue which is not easy to solve even with a human moderator. And in fact, there are some startups that are starting to work on projects for open bazaar to solve this issue with an insurance model. So with a transaction insurance model, which is something which can cover the loss on one side, but is not ultimately solving the issue, right? So FIO here can solve all the issues that we found that are strictly linked to the shipment, to the actual delivery of the parcel, with a smart contract which is automated, so you have no need to wait for the buyer to mark the item as received. And there is an integration which UPS at the moment. We are working with the integration with other data sources, but you need to have a tracking number at this point. Okay, so this doesn't apply for all transactions. And you need the merchant to accept FIO as one of the moderator in the list that I showed at the beginning. And you need the buyer to agree on the conditions that FIO sets, right? So this is even a solution for the scaling problem that I was talking about before. Because Fio is just facilitating the creation of a smart contract. So we are not executing any service on our side. We are just providing a tool to facilitate, to help in the creation of this smart contract. And this is executed by oraclize, so by the single oracle structure. And other than this, my other two co-founders are both lawyers. And what they did was preparing a legally binding agreement, which essentially is describing the same logic between the two parties, the buyer and the merchant, that the smart contract does implement, so that you can use these informations even in court if needed. Obviously, you mostly, I mean, the whole thing about decentralization was not to rely on this old model, right? But at the end of the day, since oraclize, for example, is not enforcing, is not really enforcing the execution. There is no way you can verify. I mean, you can see that oraclize did provide a wrong answer, which means that in fact oraclize can behave dishonestly for at least one time. Okay, so you still want a way to prevent that, and the agreement is something important because you can easily see that there is no other third party. So it's not like the human moderator, which is choosing. Here, it's just a way to enforce an agreement that the buyer and the merchant have between them, right? So this is linking payment to delivery without no need to trust an external party other than, I mean, you're putting some trust, but it's a very limited trust compared to the one you have to put in a human moderator. So if you is still not in control of funds, you could probably say the same for human moderators, right? So what if I ask you whether PayPal is in control of funds? So PayPal is essentially acting as a moderator, as an escrow, right? But we all know that they are mostly taking the side of the buyer. So to me, this sounds like they are still in control of the funds, because they are not completely fair, right? They are not just based on facts. Exactly because, as I was saying before, it's not always possible to rely on facts. So Fio is not the trusted party that the human moderator mostly is. And it's not the solution of everything. So as I said before, the brick problem is still there. So it's a good compromise. And here you see one of our first proof of concepts. So this is working already. This is outside OpenBazaar. So this is not the OpenBazaar integration. As you can see here, you have something which looks similar. Well, it's more ugly, but it looks similar to the PayPal checkout form. Because you have the payment, the delivery form, the payment, and the summary. Okay, so pretty much standard. But an interesting feature is this screenshot, because this is pretty interesting because what we were thinking about is, look, if this thing needs to fit with this decentralized mindset and with the let's lower the trust as much as possible mindset, then why would we trust the website to show all the different changes in the description every time? So when you buy an item, you mostly trust the merchant to send you this exact item, right? What if the description is changed at a later time? On eBay, for example, you can see the history of the description. Okay, so you can see what the description was at the time of the payment. But on other websites, it's not as easy to trust them as with eBay, So think about the merchant selling on his own website. How do you trust him? So this screenshot is not a simple screenshot. It's a PNG image, which in its metadata has a cryptographic proof, which is the same TLS notary proof that I was talking before. So essentially, you can verify at any time with this file, with this screenshot, that that website was really containing the given content. So this is just like timestamping the screenshot, right? But timestamping the screenshot, timestamping the screenshot is something you can do even with the Bitcoin blockchain. You just take the hash and you put hash in a transaction. Still, this doesn't really prove anything because if I buy an item at 1 p.m. and I put the transaction in at 4 p.m., I can just prove that at 4 p.m. this image did exist. But I'm not proving that at 1 p.m. it was the same. So the TLS notary cryptographic proof that is inside this image is indeed proving that that website was showing this exact content. Okay. So this is the contract, the legally binding contract that I was talking about. And as you see here, there is no privacy disclosing. So all your details are in fact just, your identification is your key. So it's your public key. The owner of this public key is the party involved in the contract. So the features we are working on now are, as I was saying before, the supporting of new carriers, a bridge between fiat money and Bitcoin, which will involve some kind of trust in the gateway, but still is something that could be of interest and give a broader access to Open Bazaar, for example, to some monitoring tools for merchants so that they can just monitor the Bitcoin network and see what is the status of their shipment just by looking at operator content, which is used already by Oraclize, right? So this is just a monitoring of the few Oraclize transactions. A more flexible tool to choose your conditions, because as I was saying before, few in this very moment is enforcing some common conditions, so a very small set. But since if the buyer and the seller do agree on a different set of conditions, then why don't let them just set up a new smart contract? In fact, Oraclize is just helping them to set up the contract. So if they want different conditions, they should be able to choose them. And the last one is very interesting. And for this one, we are talking with a major carrier to get some custom API on their side. Obviously, this is way slower, bureaucracy and all this kind of stuff. And this will let a new feature in, which is the absolute parcel match, which means that the carrier will not give the parcel to the wrong person. So you need to show a secret in order to receive the parcel when the carrier is at your doorstep. So you need to provide something like a QR code, whose hash is already in blockchain. Okay, so you can show that you are allowed to get this parcel, and it's not somebody else, which often happens. So this is ready via the web interface that I was showing before in the screenshots. We are integrating it with Open Bazaar. The Open Bazaar integration is not ready, but will work in the way that I was explaining. So as a moderator, when you as a merchant set up your store, you choose you as the moderator, and then the buyer can possibly choose it when buying something. So we are looking for moderators, for merchants, both Open Bazaar merchants and merchants selling somewhere else. It doesn't make any difference because you can use Fio even as in the same way you use PayPal, right? For now, it works just with Bitcoin. So you need to be accepting Bitcoin. Of course, it's not a problem on OpenBazaar, but something different if you are selling on your own website. So this is even a way to accept Bitcoins, right? So instead of setting up I forgot the name. One of those services to accept Bitcoin, you can just set up the few checkout button. And yeah, we are starting our closed beta soon, in a matter of weeks. So if any of you is interested, just ping me. And yeah, this is pretty much all. You can give a look at our website to stay posted with updates or anything. And yeah, you can follow us on Twitter for updates. Thank you.